Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the family, I would like to thank you all for your attendance here today. If you would, please check your phones to make sure that you have them on silent. Thank you. My name is Tina, and I'm honored and privileged to be able to be here with you today. And I'm just going to be at the front emceeing everything as we go along. And I'll be speaking and introducing everyone as they come up. I'd like to start with the obituary. This is not the obituary in the memorial folder. You'll find this on our website. And it says that it is with great sorrow that we announce the passing of Isabella Houston Collier, better known as Isabel, age 80. Isabel was born on December 16, 1941, in Glasgow, Scotland, and passed peacefully at home in Santa Fe, Texas, on November 23, 2022, surrounded by family. She is preceded in death by her parents, James and Jane Taylor, brothers, James Taylor and Alec Taylor, plus sisters Jessie Urquart, Jean McDonald, and Elsie Howlett. Isabel will be forever remembered by her husband of 56 years, Jean Collier. She is survived by her daughters Stephanie Burchell and her husband Iain of New Haven, Connecticut, and Susan Muehe and her husband Coty of League City, Texas. Grandchildren Andrew Burchell and his wife Talitha McCann, Grace Burchell of Edinburgh, Scotland, Mallory Muehe and Meredith Muehe of League City, Texas, along with numerous nieces and nephews stretching from New York to Scotland and from England to Australia. Isabel was a devoted wife, sister, mother, grandmother, and friend. Whether camping or cruising, she enjoyed traveling and exploring 49 of the United States alongside her husband, Jean. She especially cherished her visits home to her beloved Scotland. Isabel liked to sew, cross-stitch, knit, quilt, and to read a good mystery. She was always up for a cuppa with her darling girlfriends from the Daughters of the British Empire, or an Olive Garden lunch with her treasured former co-workers from Lamarck ISD, where she worked for more than 20 years. A Scottish granny, Isabel always held a special place in her heart for her 4 beautiful grandchildren. Influenced by her love for Scotland, her grandson Andrew and granddaughter Grace have since established their own lives in Edinburgh, Scotland. Isabel was often seen cheering from the stands at Mallory and Meredith's basketball and volleyball games. Gran, as she was lovingly referred, never missed a band concert or musical theater performance. And at this time, I would like to introduce our bagpiper. He is going to play our first song, Mist-Covered Mountains. Our next speaker will be Ms. Collier's son-in-law, Iain. He's going to share a poem, Farewell to Ayrshire.
Scenes of woe and scenes of pleasure, scenes that former thoughts renew, scenes of woe, scenes of pleasure, now a sad and last adieu. Bonnie Doon, say sweet at gloamin', fairly well before I gang. Bonnie Doon, where early roamin', first I weaved the rustic sang. Bowers adieu, where love decoying, first enthralled this heart of mine. There the safest sweets enjoying, sweets that memory never shall tine. Friends so near my bosom ever, ye hae rendered moments dear, but alas, when forced to sever, then the stroke, oh how severe. Friends that parting tear reserve it, though 'tis double dear to me, could I think I did deserve it, how much happier would I be. Scenes of woe, scenes of pleasure, scenes that former thoughts renew, scenes of woe, scenes of pleasure, now a sad and last adieu.
And now her daughter Susan would like to share some memories with you also.
Just go ahead and ask for your forgiveness in advance in case I have a mental breakdown. If I hit the floor, maybe somebody can come stand me back up. So thank you for all being here today. For those that I haven't met, I'm Susan Muehe, and I'm Isabel's younger daughter. Isabella Houston Taylor was born to parents James and Jane Taylor on Tuesday, December the 16th, 1941, in Glasgow, Scotland. She was one of 4 girls and the youngest of 6. When Isabel was 15 years of age, her father, Constable James Taylor, died suddenly, and his wife Jane passed a short time later. Upon their passing, Isabel was fortunate to remain in her childhood home with her sister Elsie. But once Elsie was married and moved to the States, Isabel's oldest sibling, Jessie, took her in. She stayed with Jessie and her family until she immigrated to the U.S. in 1966. Isabel, as she preferred to be called, studied at Moss Park Primary, Bella Houston Academy, and later at Langside College, where she earned a certificate in shorthand, accomplishing a rate of 80 words per minute, something Stephanie and I just couldn't fathom. She was employed by British European Airways, now known as British Airways, and during her time with BEA, she was able to travel all across Europe. In June of 1965, Isabel traveled to Key West, Florida to be with her sister, Elsie, as she was expecting her first baby. Isabel arrived in true Scottish form, wearing a wool dress and an overcoat. And since Elsie had already gone into labor, Jimmy enlisted the help of a friend that owned a car to collect Isabel from the airport in Miami and drive her south to Key West. And although Isabel slept through the birth of Elsie's first daughter, she was around to help with the important things like late night and early morning nappy changes. Since Elsie wasn't able to show Isabel around Key West, she and Jimmy called once again upon their friend with the car. And who was the owner and driver of the car, you ask? Oh, it would be my dad, Jane Collier. And the rest, as they say, was history. After dating for 6 weeks and writing letters for a few months, Isabel attained her visa and traveled from Glasgow to New York and eventually reunited with Jean in Brooklyn. She and Jean were married on June 9th, 1966 in Lamarck, Texas. Once settled, Isabel earned a paraprofessional certificate from the Texas Education Secretaries Association and worked for a short time at UTMB in Galveston before accepting a position with Lamarck ISD. She worked in the admin building there for more than 20 years. Jean completed the building of their family home in Santa Fe, Texas in 1978, and that is where he and Isabel raised their 2 daughters, Stephanie and Susan. Despite the norm at the time, Isabel worked outside of the home, making us a 2-income family. She was quite the role model, letting my sister and I know that we could have it all. A full-time job outside of the home, a family, a spouse, and yet still have time to be a volunteer as a band booster or a room mom. Once we got older, there were times that Stephanie and I were left at home to our own devices. And on many occasions, there was a race to see who could dial mom at work the fastest. We both still have the number etched in our brains, 938-4251. Mom proudly served the Sir Malcolm Sargent chapter of the Daughters of the British Empire for nearly 40 years. She held offices of both secretary and treasurer, and over the years never missed the annual British Bazaar, their main fundraiser. She used her sewing skills to make many outfits and costumes over the years. She could sew, quilt, knit, and cross-stitch, all while engaged in an episode of her favorite TV show, All Creatures Great and Small. Whether cruising or camping, Isabel loved to travel. She managed to see 49 of the 50 states, a feat most natural-born American citizens can't claim. However, her favorite trips were always back home to beloved Scotland. Mom was a proud Scot, but didn't hesitate to obtain her U.S. citizenship in 1987. I remember helping her study for the exam. One question was, who was the 16th president of the United States? She hesitated, and I was insulted that she couldn't answer quickly. It was in that moment that I learned that there was a whole world outside of the U.S. that in fact did not learn about Abraham Lincoln. Mom was on the constant hunt for a perfect navy blue skirt, navy blue pants, black skirt, black pants, plus a pair of heels in both colors. After all, no closet was complete without such. I've tried to carry on this tradition by remaining on the hunt for the perfect pair of navy blue shoes. Just ask Coty. While we never noticed, Mom never lost her accent. And when someone would say, "Are you English, or are you from Ireland?" she made it known that she was clearly insulted, and then quickly yet sternly informed them that she was in fact Scottish. Growing up, our friends would ask, "Why does your mom talk funny?" It always took me a minute to sort why they were asking and answer their question. Raising two girls in America, Mom adjusted her vocabulary accordingly. It was never the boot and the bonnet, but rather the trunk and the hood. It was never a bin, but rather a trash can. And it was oatmeal, not porridge. Never called it a quid or a pound, but rather $1. She taught us that even though the Americans had their own way to enunciate, it wasn't always correct. It was a tomato, not a tomato. And it was a garage, not a garage. As a result of these lessons, Stephanie and I learned early on how to pronounce cities like Edinburgh, not Edinburgh, Glasgow, not Glasgow, Kirkintilloch, Loch Lomond, not Loch. But most importantly, we were taught that it's a scone, not a scone. Thanks to Mom, a lot of people know more about Scottish traditions here in our small corner of Texas than one would expect. I have many friends that can't hear or say the word scone without thinking of Mom and me. In preparation for this eulogy, I asked all 4 of Mom's grandchildren to share a favorite memory. Her oldest, Andrew, shared, "One of my favorite times with Gran was when we went on a road trip with her, Grandpa, and Aaron Dean. I still remember Gran's face when Grandpa went a wrong way in a one-way, turning into a Target parking lot and ran the whole RV down the side of a boulder. He says, I can still hear Gran yelling, 'Jean!'" Mom's second grandchild, Grace. "When I was in kindergarten, I used to love eating out of the frozen Okay, y'all don't judge us. The frozen bucket of margarita mix that Gran always had in the deep freezer. For Grandparents' Day at my school, my teacher asked us to draw our favorite thing to do at our grandparents' house. I drew me sitting at the table with a margarita tub and said, 'I like going to my Gran's house because she lets me eat margaritas.' I wish we could have been there to see the look on the teacher's face." We still have that drawing, by the way. Mom's third grandchild, Mallory. "My favorite memory with my beautiful Gran was when I brought her and Grandpa to Grandparents' Day at the book fair at my elementary school. I remember trying to convince Grandpa's cheap ass to buy me a sparkly pen, and he said no. Gran went behind his back and bought that pen anyways. I remember being so excited to introduce Gran to my class, with everyone asking me about her silly voice. I convinced everyone in my class that Scottish is its own language." And then Mom's youngest, Meredith. "My favorite memory with Gran was our tea parties together when she babysat me. She would sit with my stuffed animals, which I made her go upstairs and get and bring down for me, and sip hot tea. Gran taught me and all of my teddy bears proper tea etiquette. And because of her, I was drinking hot and iced tea every day by the age of 1, and I will always think of her every time I brew a cup of tea. Thanks to Mom, a lot of people know more about Scottish traditions here in Texas than one would expect, from tartan to bagpipes and from haggis to ceilidh dancing. Mom shared a culture that we were all lucky to learn about. And I'll leave you now with the following poem from Robert Burns. My heart is in the highlands, my heart is not here. My heart is in the highlands, chasing the deer. Chasing the wild deer and following the roe, my heart is in the highlands, wherever I go. Farewell to the highlands, farewell to the north, the birthplace of valor, the country of worth. Wherever I wander, wherever I rove, the hills and the highlands, forever I love. Farewell to the mountains, high covered with snow. Farewell to the stress of green valleys below. Farewell to the forest and wild hanging woods, and farewell to the torrents and loud pouring floods. My heart is in the highlands, my heart is not here. My heart is in the highlands, a chasing a deer. Chasing the wild deer and following the roe, my heart is in the highlands, wherever I go. Rest easy, Mom, we'll take it from here.
And once again, I would like to invite our bagpiper. He's going to play Sky Boat Song. At this time, I would like to invite anyone that would like to come up and share a memory with the family. If you don't want to come up, I can bring the microphone to you. I would like to invite Iain back up. He has another poem he would like to share with you. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want me to bring the microphone to you? The reason we're doing the microphone is we are live streaming this, and the people watching it cannot hear unless it's in the microphone.
My name is Jill, and I'm a friend of the Muehes and the Colliers. I have a memory of speaking with Mrs. Collier about the TV show Outlander, and we were all crazy for it. It's such a great show, but her words were, "It's far too racy for me." And I kind of felt like, you're right, it is really racy. But she was lovely.
Is there anybody else who would like to say something? Did you want to say something? No? Okay. All right. I would like to invite Iain back up. He is going to share a poem entitled Highland Mary. Sorry. There you go.
Thank you. Ye banks and braes and streams around the castles of Montgomery, green be your woods and fair your flowers, your waters never drumly. There simmer first sun fall to her robes, and there the langest tarry, for there I took my last farewell, O my sweet Highland Mary. How sweetly bloomed the gay green birk, how rich the hawthorn's blossom, as underneath their fragrant shade I clasped her to my bosom. The golden hours on angels' wings flew o'er me and my dearie, for dear to me as light and life was my sweet Highland Mary. Wi' mony a vow and locked embrace, our parting was fae tender, and pledging aft to meet again, we tore our souls asunder. But oh, fell death's untimely frost, that nipped my flower so early. Now green's the sod and cods the clay that wraps my Highland Mary. Oh, pale, pale now those rosy lips I aft have kissed sae fondly, and closed for aye the sparkling glance that dwelt upon me so kindly. And mouldering now in silent dust that heart that loed me dearly, I still within my bosom's core still shall live my Highland Mary.
And our final song, Amazing Grace. Ladies and gentlemen, this does conclude our service here in the chapel. And once again, on behalf of the family, I thank you all for your attendance. In a moment, you'll be asked to stand and follow the family out and then directly to the left to share food and fellowship with them in our banquet hall. Thank you. And if you'll all stand.